Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Many of you who are moving to Mexico must be wondering whether the things that you see in India is it common here in Mexico, because I know most of you are aware of things in United States, UK or Canada, but not many things are told about Mexico from an Indian perspective. So I thought I will explain the things that we see so commonly in India, but that is not very common here in Mexico. Alright, so without wasting any time, let's get into the video. Alright, so the first thing that I wanted to talk about, I know it sounds very silly, but I have seen few Indians doing that here, so I thought I will explain that first. So in India, when we buy vegetables from a local store or from vegetable seller, they usually give us some curry leaves or cilantro or some green chilies, just like that. For example, we buy for 500 rupees and they give it for free at the end, right? So we are used to that, and when we come to Mexico, we expect the same thing. I have seen few Indians asking for cilantro and then they expect that to be given free. But here in Mexico, they don't do that. Even if you buy things for 500 pesos or even if it's for 1000 pesos, they sometimes, and you want cilantro, they don't, give it for free. You will have to pay like 2 pesos or 5 pesos, depending on the amount. So don't expect that they will give it for free. Well, if the seller is, kind enough, or he thinks that you have made a good purchase, then probably he'll give it for free. But usually, even if it is for a very small quantity, they will charge you 2 or 3 pesos for cilantro or green chilies. So please don't bargain or don't ask for anything free at the end after the purchase of vegetables. The next one that you won't see here in Mexico is our famous Indian jadu. Yes, the broomstick. We all know the broomsticks that we use in India. That's not available here in Mexico. Well, maybe in the Indian store might be selling it, but otherwise you won't find that here. When I moved to Mexico, that was a complete, a surprise for me, because as I mentioned before, we have lived in Budapest, and of course, when you live in a foreign country, you know that you don't find a broomstick like India, and you expect that vacuuming is more common. And that's what we used to do in Budapest. But when we came to Mexico, even the vacuum was not that popular at that time. I'm talking about 10 years back. I came to the house. I was looking for a broomstick, expecting something similar to that we get in India. But the broomsticks here are completely different. I will show you a picture here. And this is what we use here in Mexico to sweep the house. Vacuum is now probably it's more popular and common here in Mexico, but earlier no. So we use this to sweep the house, and it's completely different from the one that we use in India. So don't expect that you would get the Indian style broomstick here in Mexico. And the fun fact is, now after using this for so many years, when I go back to India, I feel the one that we use in India is not at all convenient, because you literally have to bend a lot to do that. And this is very convenient. You don't have to bend, and it reaches all the places and it's easy to clean. Another thing that you won't find here in Mexico are books in English. It's very rare that you will find books in English. You might find in stores like Gandhi or maybe in few libraries, but they're pretty expensive when compared to the books that you get in India or in any other country. So if you are an avid reader of books, then I would suggest please get your books when you're traveling to Mexico, because it's not very easy to find English books here in Mexico. Maybe in Mexico City, yes, because there are more foreigners there. But in other states of Mexico, it's very difficult to find English books. So either get used to Kindle, the e-books, or you get your books when you're coming from India. The next one that I'm going to talk about is for the ladies. Here in Mexico, you won't find people threading eyebrows. It's so common for us in India. Every parlor has someone who threads our eyebrows. That's one big problem all the ladies face when they move to Mexico, because it's not easy to find anyone who threads eyebrows. It's more common to find people waxing here, and we are not used to that. So it's a little difficult to get adapted to that. So if you are a person who gets your eyebrows threaded regularly, then I would say you either find the latest techniques where you can shape your eyebrows, or get a plucker, or then YouTube's they have these tutorials where you could do with the threads. So practice that before coming to Mexico, because you won't find anyone threading your eyebrows here in Mexico. Maybe if you have if you're lucky, you might find an Indian who does that, like any lady who has learned the beauty parlor course. Maybe they might do it, but otherwise it's not very common to find anyone threading the eyebrows here. The next one, and the one that you would appreciate the most when you come to Mexico, is that the power going off very frequently is not very common here in Mexico. For example, in India, we are so used to the power cuts every time, especially during summer. We are so used to it that it doesn't really bother us anymore. It goes for 1 or 2 hours and it's okay for us. But luckily, in Mexico, that doesn't happen. It's not very common that the power goes off, or there's a power outage. It's not very common. And even if it's raining, it's not very common that you don't have power. But India, we are so used to it. So that's one thing you would really appreciate when you come to Mexico, because that doesn't happen here. And even if it happens, they will let you know. For example, in our colony, if there is any maintenance work, they will let us know in advance that you won't be having power for a couple of hours because there's going to be some maintenance work. So we know and we are prepared. But otherwise, the power outage is not very common here in Mexico. And the next thing is our famous two-wheelers and autos that we see so commonly in India, but you won't see that here in Mexico. Well, past couple of years, because of the Uber Eats and Rappi, the food services that is happening, the two-wheelers have become little more popular, and you will find few of them on the streets. But otherwise, you don't find two-wheelers and autos never on the streets. Maybe you will find autos in small pueblas, like small towns. When you go on vacations here in Mexico, you will find a couple of autos there. But otherwise, in big cities, it's very rare that you will find two-wheelers or autos going on the streets. So that's something which you're going to miss when you come to Mexico. And when you see an auto, if you are on vacation here in Mexico, you will immediately take your phone and take a picture. I can bet on that, because that's not something common here in Mexico. And when you see that, you get really excited and you miss your country. The next one is again for the ladies, because I get a lot of questions from the ladies who are moving to Mexico asking if we get any domestic help or any person to clean the house here in Mexico. Well, we do get here some help to clean the house, but not like we do in India. For example, in India, we have someone coming every day in the morning or in the evening to clean the house, to wash our vessels. But here in Mexico, it's not very common that you will find anyone. You can find, for example, if you're living in a colony, you will find a couple of ladies coming to that colony, but it's not like they come every day. It's like once a week or maybe twice a week. And what they do is they come and clean the whole house. They take like 3 or 4 hours, and then they clean the whole house along with, even if you want to iron your clothes, they will do that. They charge around 250 to 500 pesos depending on the size of your house and the things that you ask them to do. So it's not like in India that they come every day to clean your vessels and to clean the house. So you will have to get used to the fact that you cannot get a help like we get in India. That's something you're going to miss again when you come to Mexico. The next one is when we go out for breakfast. You won't find a lot of vegetarian options here in Mexico like we do in India. For us in India, usually breakfast is a vegetarian food. Like for example, in South India, we have idli, dosas, and appam or whatever. And even in North India, it's parathas, rotis, or poha. We usually opt for a vegetarian food for breakfast. It's very, very rare that we take non-veg for breakfast. But here in Mexico, they are more used to the non-vegetarian food in the breakfast, or they eat eggs for sure. But if you're a vegetarian, you might find that a bit difficult here in Mexico when you go out for breakfast. The options you might get is, the pancakes or crepe or donuts or sweet bread. But our Indian taste buds, we really don't like very sweet things in the morning. We always crave for something, like our Indian homemade food, which might be a little difficult for you to find here. So if you're very particular about that, I would suggest you to carry something with you if you're going on vacations here in Mexico. And then the next one, I really didn't want to talk about this, but I know many of my Mexican friends who ask me this question. So I thought maybe my Indian friends also have this question. My Mexican friends usually ask me that, they have heard that cows and buffaloes or animals are free on the roads in India, which they see through the YouTube videos or with the videos on the internet, and which is actually true because we see cows, buffaloes, monkeys roaming around freely, and it's a common thing for us. But when you come to Mexico, you might not find cows and buffaloes roaming around like it happens in India. So I thought I'll just tell you that. I'm sure most of you know it, but since Mexicans asked me about this, I thought I will inform my Indian friends too that you won't find cows, buffaloes, or monkeys here on the roads like we do in India. The next question most of them ask me is about the gas connection. It's not like we get gas cylinders that we get in India, the red ones or the cylinders that we get in India. Here also there are gas cylinders, but most of the houses here have either a gas pipe connection, or there are gas tanks where you will have to call the company, the gas company, and they would come and fill the tank. So that's the two ways of getting gas at home, but not like the gas cylinders that we get in India. But yes, I have seen gas cylinders here too in Mexico, but I think those are usually used for the restaurants or people who have some business at home. But otherwise, for the houses, usually it's gas tank or pipe connection for the gas. And another funny thing that I wanted to mention is in India, we see a lot of people plucking flowers from public places in the name of God. They all say that, this is for God. So the owner or people really don't bother because it's for God. So they don't say anything. And it's a common thing that happens in India. You can pluck flowers from anywhere and you're offering it to God. But please don't do that here in Mexico because here they don't pluck flowers from public places. You're not supposed to do that. So don't try to do that here in Mexico. So I hope I answered few of your questions or few of your doubts that you must have had. And do let me know if you have any more questions about things that you see in India and that you might not see in Mexico. And I would love to answer them. And I hope you guys like this video. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to my channel. I'll see you in the next one. Until then, take care. Bye.